Obviously, it's something that we've been keeping our eyes on. What exactly is the threat right now in that area?
So in that region, we're actually starting to see things recede just a little bit. It's not much. Obviously, as you saw in that video, there's still flooding in a lot of backyards and the creeks are still really swollen. But we are going to expect to see some type of improvements as we move throughout the overnight tonight and into early tomorrow morning. Part of the reason is that, of course, it's drying out in terms of rain falling, but it's also getting a little bit cooler. Now, here's what we're seeing outside right now. In terms of flood warning, South Erie County is under a warning through 6:45 tonight. Now, just into our newsroom moments ago, areas like Buffalo Creek and Cazenovia Creek extending that warning through 4:45 tomorrow morning. So this is something we're going to continue to monitor. But like I mentioned, we are starting to see things kind of quiet down just a little bit. So that's one positive piece of news. Now, across the rest of western New York, excluding Allegheny County, we've got flood watches in place through that same time period, 4 o'clock early tomorrow morning. And until that point, we will stay dry. So again, that will help. But earlier on today, we did add a lot more water to the mix. Not just melting snow, but rain falling from the sky added about 2/10 of an inch to Buffalo. Areas south a little bit less, closer to 1/100 of an inch, but still not good news in terms of what we saw last night and this morning. Now, outside right now, temperatures are still on the mild side for some of you. Coudersport remains in the mid-40s, which is really warm for this time of year. But all other areas across western New York are right around average for this time of year and this time of day. When you compare it to last week, this is really, really warm. But if we compare it to yesterday, we're about 20 to 30 degrees cooler. Now, that cooling will continue as we move throughout the overnight tonight, and temperatures are expected to fall into the 20s. And we'll get to what that's going to do in a moment, but I want to give you a current look at the gauges. These were updated at about 3:30, and you'll see here that we are starting to see the water decline a little bit at Buffalo Creek in West Seneca. Not by much just yet, but by tomorrow we are anticipating and forecasting that it's going to be well below that flood stage. Now, as we move to Big Sister Creek at Evans, you'll notice that this is where it typically falls, right around that 8 feet mark, but it did spike yesterday towards 14 feet. Now that is too starting to decline, and the forecast models show that continuing. Now, this isn't all of the creek that is swollen. It's just these areas jammed up by ice. So as soon as those break up, there's a little bit longer of a period just after that happens of flooding, but then the water does spread out and recede once again. So here's what we're looking at in terms of precip. Again, quiet for the majority of the night tonight, which is good news. That allows some of those creeks time to kind of settle down. But by early tomorrow morning, 5, 6 o'clock, and just in time for that early morning commute, we are expecting kind of a wintry mess. So for the falls and areas north of Buffalo, this precip will start as snow. It will further south move in as freezing rain, and across the southern tier will stay primarily rain throughout a lot of the day, which is good news for them. No real concerns there, but areas further north are anticipating at least a couple tenths of an inch of ice. And what that means is we could have some isolated power outages. Things could be really slick, especially any untreated surfaces, roadways, sidewalks, things of that nature. So keep that in mind early tomorrow morning through early Thursday morning, especially north of Buffalo. It will be a little bit slick. Now, notice tomorrow afternoon, those temps will peak in the upper 40s, especially south of Buffalo, but we return to the 30s and even the 20s moving through the weekend. Christy?